said coming into this road trip, if the Mets can go 3-3, that would be a very successful road trip, and that's exactly what they did. They were able to salvage the finale of their series with the San Francisco Giants, so the Mets currently are 13-11 in the National League East. Welcome to the Queens Connection podcast, a production of Patton Sports Creative. I am your host, Andrew Patton, and we are joined yet again by Corne Hogving. Corne, hello. How are you today?
Doing well. We have King's Day coming up, so big celebrations this weekend here in the Netherlands. So look forward to that. And we're wearing orange, so part of the Mets colors.
Sounds like a drinking holiday to me, if anything.
Maybe I will
And
take
have
a few.
a couple
Uh,
alcoholic beverages.
yeah, I'm not that big of a drinker, so.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. All right. Whatever. All right. Well, that's good. That sounds fun. So what wasn't fun was the first couple of games of this Giants series. So I say we should just dive right into it here. The Mets lost the first game of this series after taking 2-3 from the Dodgers. They went up to San Francisco and lost the opener 5-2. The Giants got out to a 4-0 lead early as Jose Quintana was not very sharp in this game. The Mets did get a run on a Pete Alonso home run, but the Giants answered back with a Conforto home run. The Mets made it interesting in the ninth. They got a run. They got the tying run up to the plate in the ninth inning, but just the one run. So the Mets lost the opener 5-2. And like I said, Quintana, not a very good game on his end. 5 innings, 7 hits, 5 runs all earned, 3 walks. The walks is something I think we're going to really hammer in this podcast. And obviously, the home run allowed. His ERA is now up to 4.21. He's 1-2 on the year. And just another outing for Quintana where some self-inflicted wounds, because that's why I think walks are. You're putting base runners on yourself. It's not like they fought their way on. You just kind of gave them first base almost. So Quintana, rough outing. What did you take away from it?
Yeah, rough outing. Did allow some soft hits in front of the hard RBI hits in that, I think, second inning. But overall, it was a tough outing for him. He was behind a lot, got into a lot of deep counts. Kudos to the Giants hitters. They were patient and they were able to foul some pitches off. Quintana wasn't able to get a lot of quick outs. We know Quintana isn't the guy who has elite swing and miss stuff, so he needs those soft contact / quick out to get a good outing, and this just was the complete opposite. They worked some walks at some point. Sometimes, Andrew, walks are not just given, but the hitters have to work hard at times, and the Giants did a good job of that. But yeah, overall, Quintana has been struggling with his command for a guy who allows his fair share of hits. That's not a good recipe for success.
No, especially in a time where the Mets are kind of relying on him right now to help anchor this rotation, be one of those top end arms with a Senga out. So when you're only getting really 5 innings and high pitch counts, he threw at 91 pitches in this outing. They did try to get him as far as they could into the 6th inning, but the leadoff home run from Conforto there, and Mendoza said he had enough. There were some outings out of the bullpen that were positive. Josh Walker pitched an inning. He got a strikeout. Sean Reed Foley also made his debut this year. He did have 2 walks, but he did get a strikeout in his 1 inning of work. And Lopez pitched a scoreless inning out of the bullpen. So, I mean, this is kind of just the same thing we've been seeing this year where the starters, and we'll talk about this when we get to the finale too, starters not getting really deep into games, having to rely on the bullpen to do the bulk of the work. And the bullpen is holding up their end of the bargain.
100%. Josh Walker was, for me, the biggest bright spot we saw last year. Walker, a little bit of control issues, and the fastball was hit fairly hard. And he used his fastball a lot in this outing. And he gets great extension. I read on Baseball Savant last year that he was in the 97th percentile in extension. So his fastball will get there quickly. So I know you like Josh Walker a lot. I think he has the stuff with the extension like we see with Sean Manaea. that his fastball is getting on hitters quicker, although it doesn't necessarily wow you on the radar gun. It does get to the plate quicker, and hitters tend to be late. We didn't see that with Josh Walker last year, but he also pitched a lot behind the count, and he threw strikes in his outing, and it was a tremendous sign that he got results with that fastball, because the curveball last year was actually pretty good when he threw it. So to have those two pitches for Josh Walker, if his fastball, if the other hitters aren't able to hit his fastball, he can be a very decent bullpen arm.
Yeah, it was a guy I liked last year, like you said. Good fastballs. If he can get his off speed working too, that's very good. He did have a couple good outings to start his major league career last year, and it was obviously those once the Mets kind of sold a lot of pieces at the trade deadline. Then he got a couple opportunities, but unfortunately didn't make the most of them. He had the walk off balk in Kansas City.
Oh,
Didn't even
right.
throw a bull. Didn't even throw a pitch. Came right out of the bullpen and balked, and then eventually got hurt and was shut down for the season. But if he's and we've seen this with the Mets too. Like they've been able to really get some good bullpen depth. So if you can keep that up, it's just another piece that you can have hanging around Syracuse. And then if like in this situation with Brooks really going down, or if Jake Diekman gets hurt at some point this season, then you can call up and still have have two lefties in the bullpen.
Yeah, 100%. And like you mentioned, we see it with the depth. There's a lot of solid depth options we have, and that's not even guys who are on the 40-man roster. It's also guys like a Nate Lavender, who's, by the way, just put on the 7-day IL. But other arms, Eric Orsi, guys who have decent stuff and could help us down the road. Daniel Nunez, obviously now a guy who's on the 40-man roster, but he wasn't on the 40-man roster before the season starts. So we see that the Mets have pretty good bullpen depth, and that they are allowed to DFA guys who are out of options again.
Yeah, and we'll probably talk about DFAing guys out of options when we done recapping the series, because there is some big news happening along the lines with JD Martinez. But the Mets in this game, they only got 2 runs on 4 hits, and the 4 hits came from Starling Marte and Pete Alonso, who both went 2 for 4. Obviously, Alonso with the home run. So just not generating a whole lot of offense that game, unfortunately. So the Mets do lose the opener in the Bay 5-2. And we had talked about in the last podcast for the second game of the series with Severino going up against Logan Webb. Uh, no, we got to keep it close because Webb is good. If he's on, he's really, really good. We talk about a Cy Young candidate, and he definitely showed it in this game. And Severino, was doing a really good job. He was perfect through 4 innings. But unfortunately, in the fifth inning, there were some soft hits, lucky hits, maybe just finding the holes, and things kind of fell apart in that fifth inning for Severino. Was able to go 6, 5 hits, 3 runs, all earned, no walks, which is very big when it comes to our starting pitching, and 5 strikeouts. So Severino, it's a tough loss for him. Falls to 2-2 on the year. He does have a 2.67 ERA going into his next start. So Severino was one of the big question marks this offseason. The Mets gave him a 1-year kind of prove it deal, and to see if last year was just a fluke with the Yankees. And so far, so good, I'd say, for the Mets investment in Severino.
Yeah, 100%. You can be mad at how Severino has performed, especially if you don't count the first outing. I thought he pitched really well. I thought it was a very fun pitchers duel, where you see that little mistakes uh, are too costly. And I think one mistake was that McNeil threw over the cutoff man from left, that allowed 2 runners to get another base, and those 2 runners scored on another hit. So it could well be just 2 runs for Luis Severino, but a bad baseball play by Jeff McNeil there. So yeah, Severino was great. Used a little bit more of his two-seamer early and went to his changeup second time through. A real starting pitcher who, you know, changes his repertoire when you face hitters more often. And also one thing that I have to mention is Lance Barrett was pretty awful behind the plate.
That's what I heard. I listened to the game on the radio coming back from a trip. So the Pat McCarthy, Keith Rad, who were doing the game, they were also kind of saying, that's a close pitch. The kind of emphasis on close pitch. Um, but unfortunately, not a great outing of the bullpen for Drew Smith. 1 inning, 3 hits, 2 runs all earned, no walks or strikeouts. So his ERA jumped up to 2.7, which isn't that bad, but the WHIP it's a little high for my liking with Drew as a good arm out of the bullpen, but fortunately, sometimes the command has been off at points this season. Jake Diekman, though, had a good outing out of the bullpen. 1 inning, zeros across the board, except there's a two, and that's under the strikeout category. So Jake Diekman with a nice outing from this in this game. The Mets offense, 1 run on 9 hits. They got their 1 run in the ninth inning. That's a DJ Stewart RBI. But Marte went 3 for 4 in this game. Alonso, another multi-hit game, went 2 for 4. Jeff McNeil also picked up 2 hits. He went 2 for 4. But when you're facing a guy like Logan Webb and you get base runners on, and sometimes with Marte too, they were just 2 out hits. So unfortunately, they couldn't get a 2 out rally going. But we talked about in the last podcast Logan Webb being really really good, and once again he was really really good in this outing.
He was really good, and yeah, he got some double plays to erase those hits, which obvious with that great sinker. The sinker was working. A lot of left-handed hitters rolled over to the left side. He was just tremendous, and he's such he's such a tough guy to face. Both strikes. He gets deep into the games. He threw 8 innings in this outing, so you know when he's on that he gets, like I said, with what Quintana didn't feature on Monday's game, Logan Webb did, is that getting quick outs, throwing strikes, and actually not giving the Mets any chance to get over those 3 runs allowed by Severino. Um, yeah, one thing I want to mention. We talked about Joey Wendell in last podcast about his defense. But what a tremendous play he made to save a run late in that game. It didn't matter, but still, it was a tremendous diving stop for Joey Wendell. So that's there is we saw what Joey Wendell can do with the glove. So that was pretty good.
Yeah, it was a really rough defensive road trip. I think they had some blunders in Los Angeles. There was a couple of fluky plays in this Giant series, like the ball that Jeff McNeil kicked around. I believe that was the first game of the series. So just maybe a little some lapses defensively in this West Coast road trip. But the Mets lost that game, so unfortunately they lost the series to the Giants. That's why we are titling this Bayside Blues because they did not take the series. It's the first series they've lost since the Tiger series when the Mets were 0-5 and they were able to salvage the finale in that series. And that's exactly what they did in this series, where they got an 8-2 win over the Giants, and it was the Francisco Lindor show in this game. He went 4 for 5, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs. So Lindor just a really and all of this coming from the left side of the plate too. So we have to highlight that. But Francisco Lindor, really since I believe you said on the last podcast, since the Trey Turner treatment at Citi Field, really starting to come around with his offense, and obviously the big home run in Los Angeles, and now the multi-home run game here. Francisco Lindor is creeping back up with the batting average and the slugging and all that good stuff. So obviously, very good signs for the Mets star shortstop.
Yeah, since the standing ovation, he has actually been good. And one thing I am bothered by a bit is that when Francisco Lindor goes 0 for 4 or 0 for 6 or 0 for 7 in 2 games, they already mentioning that he's still in a slump. Francisco Lindor right now isn't in a slump. Francisco Lindor is picking it up, is hitting well since the standing ovation. But yes, the numbers overall will probably be a little bit low because he started out hitting like buck 38 or something like that early on. So yeah, that's there's some time to let that creep up, and even good hitters in a good groove will get an 0 for a 4 day in between. And yeah, right now that still gets you hit your average pretty hard. He was great. He was also great with the glove in this series. I thought he made a couple of good plays on Monday, if I remember correctly, where he made some tough plays look easy, and he obviously made that great diving stop in this game. So Lindor is doing Lindor things right now, and I think we should stop saying that he is still struggling, because that was all early in the season, and he's creeping it up right now. So we should be pleased with that.
Yeah, another guy who we could say is doing this thing is Tyrone Taylor, who went 2 for 5 in this game, home run, also drove in 2 additional runs. And it's noteworthy just because of who's lingering, who's coming up allegedly for this weekend series against the St. Louis Cardinals. That would be JD Martinez. And we've seen it with DJ Stewart. He's really picked it up. Tyrone Taylor has been like this pretty much from day one of the season. So the way the Mets are, the way they try to find these guys at bats will definitely be interesting. But there's no doubt in my mind, especially when left-handers are on the mound, that Tyrone Taylor is going to find a spot in the lineup. Whether that's giving Starling Marte a day off to keep him healthy, whether it's giving Harrison Bader a day off to make sure he can get through a full 162, the Mets will find some way to get Tyrone Taylor's bat in the lineup.
Yeah, they have to. He's been crazy hot, and it seems like every time we see Tyrone Taylor play this year, he does something good. If it's not with the bat, it's with the glove. He's been hitting the ball very hard. He's been tremendous in a pretty difficult job, because it's not like Tyrone Taylor is an everyday player right now. He gets his fair share of playing time. It's not an everyday player. And I still, even with Martinez, I still think we see Tyrone Taylor getting outfield play with maybe Harrison Bader getting a day off. Tyrone Taylor can play the heck out of center field, so you can easily put him in center field. Maybe Brandon Nimmo a day off when you face a tough lefty. Marte, if you know Marte, a little bit on the older side, who's hitting very well, but still 35, 36 right now, so could use a day off at some point. And even if um, you can even move. And keep McNeil just at second, because McNeil is right now playing some outfield, and you could easily just leave him at second base and have Tyrone Taylor play those spots where you need to, in my opinion.
Yeah. Some other guys to highlight. Brett Beatty was 1 for 4 in this game with an RBI. Nimmo didn't pick up a hit in the finale, but he did get 2 walks and he scored both times. So that's just what the leadoff hitter should do. Find a way to get on base, and we've seen Brandon do that. Like they even talk about in the broadcast. He in this little bit of a lull he's got going with the bat in this West Coast trip. His on base percentage was still over 350, probably even a little bit higher than what I'm giving him credit for right now. But as long as Brandon Nimmo's got is putting together good at bats, getting on base one way or another, that he's just doing what he always does, and I don't really have too much concern about if he gets on because of a single or if it's a walk. If he gets on first base, he gets on first base, and that's what they need.
If you slump and you still have an on base percentage around 350 or something, then I think you're doing pretty well. Every hitter goes through slumps. So also Brandon Nimmo, but Brandon Nimmo has the ability to still take good at bats and still find his way on base. And in slumps, that's all what you can do. So yeah, no complainos, no complaints.
And when we're pretty confident that Brandon, even with the batting average is pretty low right now, it's gonna just like Lindor, it's gonna pick up, no doubt about that.
Yeah, Brandon Nimmo is not necessarily a guy who's gonna hit 300 as well. So um, he has a main plus, and that's getting on base with walks or hit by pitches. And if he does that, he gets his fair share of hits. He gets some home runs, and you get a good season out of Brandon Nimmo.
Yeah, so let's jump over to the pitching side of this game real quick. Sean Manaea, Another short outing, 4 and 2/3, 4 hits, 4 walks, 6 strikeouts, which was the 6 strikeouts is nice. But the 8 base runners in less than 5 innings of work is not very pretty. And they went to Reed Garrett to get the final out in the fifth. And you can kind of see on the broadcast, Sean Manaea was a little upset, probably mostly with himself, I would think, rather than with Mendoza taking him out of the game. And we kind of saw him, head down a little bit on the top rail and everything like that. Wanting to get that last out in the fifth inning, but he was over 100 pitches. So Mendoza decided to make the move to arguably what's been his best reliever this year. But I guess my thing is because um, if I like how Sean was like, hey, I want to get I want that last out, I want to finish it off, whatever, blah blah blah. But don't put yourself in situations like that where the manager has to make those decisions. Stop walking people. I mean, this is just an issue with this whole Mets pitching staff, and obviously you can tell I'm getting a little irritated about this. Just the walks kill, and it kills your pitch count. It kills your ability to go deep in the games, and that is you're doing all these hand motions no one can see, but in the Mets, no, they put the graphic up. They had the highest walks per nine in the National League, and that's why their stars aren't getting deep in the games. Is because they're prolonging at bats. Do have to give, like you said earlier, sometimes you got to give the batter credit. But a lot of these pitches, sometimes it seems like they're just not competitive pitches where you can tempt the batter to chase. And obviously, I like Sean Manaea. He's pitched pretty well for the most part this year. Obviously, his first start was tremendous. But if you're going to walk people, if you're going to walk 4 batters in less than 5 innings, and your pitch count gets high, you put your manager in this tough position. So when he takes you out and you can't get the win in a game you easily should have gotten the win, I don't feel as bad for you.
It was 100% the right move. Also, he had 2 runners on, and Jorge Soler came up, a guy who can make a 6-0 lead, a 6-3 lead
Yep.
in a hurry, and then you have a whole new ball game. So it was time for Mendoza to get one of your best relievers in to shut it down right there. And I mean, this is the first Andrew rant, and we're probably gonna get a lot more. But
You wanted it to be the City Connect uniforms, and I disappointed you because I thought they were okay. You wanted me to think they
yes,
were bad, so you thought that was going to be my rant. Well, I guess here's a little bit of a teaser
yeah,
for something big coming later.
you have something big later in this episode. Oh wow,
Oh,
that's
maybe I don't know, or later in
I'm
this episode, maybe in the later episode. Who knows? Everyone's got to be on the
all right.
lookout.
Oh yeah, I have to wait again. Yeah, no, no, it's
Oh wait,
you're
I
totally
do have
right.
something to rant about later, and it has to do with pitching, construction, and everything. We kind of talked a little bit about this, so maybe we can touch on it later. So maybe we will get a
Uh,
full rant today.
I hope so. I'm just sitting here listening and say nothing when that happens. But you're totally right. Um, he walked too many long at bats, too many deep counts. Was behind a lot, even in that inning where he had the bases loaded. I think in 2 of the 3 hitters he got, he was behind in a count, or at least at 3 balls. So yeah, he just struggled with command, like a lot of Mets pitchers have done so far, and it's obviously putting Mendoza in the spot that he had to make that move. I'm definitely not mad at Mendoza for making that move, and I'm definitely not. I definitely don't feel bad for Sean Manaea. Um, in the end, he still pitched a good ball game. If you look at the results, I think he should be pleased with going 4 and 2/3 scoreless innings. I say that often in this podcast so far, but I take that if my starter goes 4 and 2/3 scoreless. But still, yeah, it's not Mendoza's fault that you needed 102 pitches to get through those 4 and 2/3 innings.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't think he was mad at Mendoza. I think he was more mad at himself. But I'm not going to feel bad for you because you put yourself in that situation. And to be fair, in that second inning, when they had the bases loaded, no outs, and there were, like you said, those 2 batters got to pop out. They were at one point, I think both were 3-1 counts, whatever. There were a couple pitches on the edge that were probably should have been strikes. So he did get squeezed a little bit there. But
Yeah,
No, it's the overall point because we've seen this in previous outings with him. The Royals game, the Dodgers, he just went to five because he had some walk issues later in that outing. And it's we talked about it with Katana too. Um, it's just an overall pitching staff issue. Oh, I shouldn't say pitching staff. I say starter issue because the bullpen has been pretty good when it comes to feels like when it comes to walks and whatnot. I don't know if the numbers truly back that up or not, but it
I
feels
think
like
so. Yeah,
the bullpen is kind of like the firemen. They put out the fire. Um,
yeah.
so you know, and I think something too because we've seen a lot of Mets starters go five, and just kind of I think Gary said like five and ride. I like to call it five and die. You know, but it's kind of a trend in Major League Baseball anyway. With some teams, they don't want their starters to face a lineup third time, so sometimes they do just go the 5 innings and whatnot. And maybe this will lead into my rant. We talked about a little bit Monday night when we were watching the game. If starters are, kind of basically just going to go at 5 innings at this point, um, and Major League Baseball with their roster construction with 26, but you can't have more. I believe it's more than 13 pitchers on the roster, so half your roster can be pitchers, but no more than that. I think that needs to change with the way arms are nowadays. To be fair, can these guys probably go a little bit more? No, there's no doubt in my mind. I think teams are just, if you want to say being cautious with them or whatever word you want to use to describe it. Um, but I do think baseball, if we're going to have these roster restrictions, which I think are really stupid. Let teams assemble the roster the way they want to, especially now with the DH in the National League. Bench pieces, while they still have some value, but you're not pinch hitting for pitchers now. You don't really need that big of a bench. Why can't you have an extra arm in the bullpen or an extra arm or two? Why don't you expand the roster to 28. So then that way, I believe the Mets right now currently have an 8-man bullpen. And then that way they could have a 10-man bullpen. And then you don't have to keep DFAing guys or optioning guys, whatever. Maybe the roster stays a little bit more set because you have more arms in the bullpen guys, can take the day off or whatever if they're unavailable and then come right back. You don't have to Grant Hartwig people, call them up, have him pitch 2 innings, and then just send him back down. He had the ability to stay on the roster and rest for a day or two because you have two extra arms in the bullpen. So I think this is something Major League Baseball should look at. Maybe it's just a me thing. I don't know. I do tend to take pitcher sides more than anything, just because I like pitching so much. Um, but with the way pitchers are, trained, I guess nowadays, where they're it's basically 100 pitches and then you're gone. And a lot of times nowadays, it seems like starters aren't going too deep. I think having at least two extra arms in the bullpen would help teams out tremendously, and then it would keep your roster perhaps more set for throughout the whole season.
Yeah, I totally agree. It was a slow rant, by the way. First of all, it wasn't
It didn't get heated.
necessarily.
It didn't get heated.
No, no, it wasn't the Andrew rant I hoped, but hey, I'll take it. It's getting there. It's getting there. But yeah, it's actually it's if you see, and it's just not just the Mets, but you see it throughout Major League Baseball. You see it throughout a guy. Oh, you pitch three innings for us, and you can go down. There's no reward for a good outing anymore right now if you're in that situation. If you do well, you're still getting sent down. If you, I mean, it's. I said it to you when the Mets DFA Tonking for the second time. I mean that
I was going to ask which
although
time.
um, he, he he has now already been DFA 3 times, and we aren't even in May yet. I mean, 3 times already DFA. It's crazy, and that's the type of guy. He's out of options, so he gets DFA'd when the Mets or another team needs an arm. He pitches a couple of innings for you, and then you're gone. And it's tough for a guy like Tonkin to have. He doesn't have any job security right now. He can get picked up by any team and probably knows that it's for one outing or two when they need him, and then he gets shipped around again. Um, to me, that's not one, not good for the players. Two, it's not good for the team because I think a team wants, you know, some guys um, that they can keep and that they can keep around. I think Tonkin does have value as a long man if he's able to get some days off after a long outing. Um, you have so many minor league players right now, so many minor league teams. I think it's easy. It's an easy decision to add two more players to your roster. I think teams will be extremely happy. I think players will have some more job security and, not getting up and down, up and down, up and down all the time. And you can give players rewards and you can also do two more on the 40-man roster for whatever you want. Yeah, 42 on the 40-man roster, 28. I don't know all the ins and outs on how that kind of change would work, but to me it seems like a very easy change that all teams and players would probably be behind.
Yeah, I think bumping the roster up to 28 men rosters, and then September comes around, you can bump it up to 30. I know that baseball kind of wanted to eliminate the 40-man rosters in September kind of thing. But
I
nowadays
get
too,
it.
like, obviously back then, um, they didn't have the three batter rule. So it was pretty much this guy would face this guy. All right, pitching change. The lefty would face the lefty. Now we got the matchup. All right, he's done. You know what? So now I think you kind of afford, I mean, maybe not the full 40, but you can afford to have extra guys on the roster, in particularly in September, um, in the
Yeah,
stretch
but I
run, or
think
for teams that want to see young, their
yeah,
guys pitch in big league action that isn't totally, I don't want to say valuable. I mean, they're not meaningful games maybe for them at that point in the season. So why not want to, check out some of these young guys? I just think there's, I just think there's a solution to this. And then, like we talk about with the up down, I kind of think I made the point a little bit. But like I think I said Grant Harway as my example. If you have the two extra guys, you don't have to send people down. And then in a situation like we saw with the Mets, where I think it was in Atlanta, they really only had like a 3-4 man bullpen that night. Having the extra arms in there, it's maybe more of a 5-6 man bullpen. It maybe makes it a little bit more easy to manage, and then guys, we don't have to DFA guys like Tonkin or Yohan Ramirez or Tyler J was DFA, but I think it's a little bit of a different situation compared to Tonkin and Ramirez. Um, but no, like you said, it provides a little bit more job security. I think it's something the players' union would definitely be in favor of. If they can negotiate that in the next CBA when that's coming up, maybe it's something to talk about. But we'll see what happens when that comes up. It's just something I've been thinking about for a while now. So I was just curious to get your thoughts and put it out in the open and see if people have any reaction to it.
well, we have a new short clip coming.
I don't know if
Andrew's
it's I don't know if it's going to be short. I'll tell you that much.
Andrew's rant about the roster. Well, at least we can get a clip. I think there are a lot of people who have an opinion on this part. But back to the game, because there are some. One. I mean, Garrett obviously allowing a run finally on that home run, but still, I thought he pitched well. But Adam Ottavino was nasty in the Wednesday win. He has been such a huge piece in that bullpen. He's been absolutely dominant. So kudos to the 38-year-old Adam Ottavino right now.
Definitely late 30s. That much I know. So
Pretty good late year career, so to speak. He's been
especially with the Mets. Yeah,
pretty darn good with us. Yes, even last year, well, he wasn't at his best. He still was solid. He's back to being the 2022 uh, Ottavino right now.
yeah. But it's definitely those he had those rough two first outings, but since then he's been pretty dialed in. There's no doubt about that. All right, let's jump down to the minor leagues real quick. I guess we'll start, as we usually do. We'll work our way up through the system. So we're going to mostly have a kind of a Tuesday focus because there's a lot of good pitching on Tuesday night. I think there are a couple other guys you want to throw into the mix here, but Tuesday night, really solid night for Mets pitching prospects or two-way prospects too. Not to mention, have to throw that in.
Oh yeah, yeah, Nolan McLean. Yeah, yeah. He was. I think his best outing so far since being a pro. 5 scoreless innings, just 2 hits, 1 walk. Um, I heard that they really see Nolan McLean as a very good arm. He has the power with his bat. I think the arm is probably has a little bit more MLB potential instead of the bat. But hey, so far he's also hitting very well. So it's fun to see him on both sides of the plate. And I was watching that game partly because we have another uh, player who was also pretty interesting to follow in that same Tuesday. And but I was watching the last 3 innings and I saw Dakota Hawkins pitch, a non-drafted free agent, and I thought, oh, he pitched very well. It's a nice, solid breaking ball. So I was looking at his numbers, and he has a 2.53 ERA in 10 and 2/3 innings so far this year with 17 strikeouts, and in his pro career, he has 39 strikeouts in 26 1/3 innings. So another arm where a bullpen arm who wasn't drafted, but the Mets picked up, and who so far is showing that he might be a decent arm to follow for a future relief spot. And we know how much relievers you need in a year, like we talked about, that the relievers are getting used more and more, and you see a lot of more relievers with all the optioning and the DFAing and et cetera, et cetera. I think it's already tough to make a list out of our heads for all the relievers who have pitched for the Mets in 1 month of play. So definitely an arm to keep an eye on and how he will perform in Brooklyn and hopefully also in the upper levels.
Yeah, obviously the headliner Tuesday night from the pitching prospect point of view was Christian Scott, who walked the first batter, got an out, and then allowed a 2-run homer. And then after that, 6 perfect innings. Just the one hit, the 2 runs which were earned, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts, and 6 1/3 innings pitched. Another solid outing for Christian Scott. And we should say that Dom Hamill had a very good outing as well with Syracuse. So the I mean we you had your little bit of a rant with the pitching the I should say the prospect how they're valued the
Yeah, I
prospect
think,
ranking
yeah.
system. Uh, but Christian Scott, man, whatever he's ranked in the Mets system,
He
he
wasn't part of the rant.
no
Christian Scott
no
wasn't
but
part of the rant.
no but
Christian Scott is
what I was gonna say is you should argue that maybe he should be bumped up a little bit higher with the way he's going.
100%. 100%. Christian Scott is striking out the world. Christian Scott is throwing strikes. Christian Scott is mixing pitches very well. He has, in my view, a pretty matured way of pitching. And we saw it now twice in 2 games in a row where um, he allows a home run. I think he allowed 2 home runs in the outing before, and then just went through the rest of the the game. And this he did it again: 2-run homer in the first, and then have all hitters, and I'm gonna get you all. And it was tremendous, tremendous. His control is impeccable for a guy with the solid stuff he has. So he could be maybe a future number 2. Maybe I'm a little bit too optimistic, but I could see it. Maybe future number 2 for the Mets
Yeah.
fairly soon.
Well, he's definitely showing a lot. Obviously, came onto the scene last year with his stints with Brooklyn and Binghamton, and he's carried that over to AAA Syracuse. So just one step away from potentially making an impact on this pitching staff, particularly the rotation. So, and who knows? Like they always say, you're just an injury away. Maybe if someone gets a little banged up and they decide to pull the trigger on adding Christian Scott to the 40 man and giving him a chance, then kudos to him because he's definitely earned it with the way he started this year. But
Yeah,
like we said, it's April, it's early on. I'm sure at some point he's going to hit a little bit of a rough patch, but that's probably when we're going to
Sure.
see, when he kind of buckles down and works his way through it. That might say a little bit more about his mental state or mental capacity when it comes to stuff like this. Because he's going to face a lot. He's going to face some at the major league level. How he handles it in AAA, with where there are some major league, quality players down there too. So, Christian Scott
Yeah.
is going to be. He's going to make an impact one way or another. It's just a matter of when. I think at this point.
Yes, I agree.
You just gotta disagree on something at some point. Maybe we will later. Who knows? Also Tuesday night, nothing spectacular, but I did take in the Rumble Ponies game. They were in Manchester, New Hampshire. I got to shout out a couple folks here. Adam LaFleur, he does the PA work for the Fisher Cats. He also does UVM hockey, which the UVM hockey radio broadcast, which I'm a part of. So that's how I know Adam. The past couple of years, he hooked up free ticket, everything like that. So shout out to him, and also shout out to Jacob Wilkins and Matt Levine, the broadcast duo for the Binghamton Rebel Ponies. They've been so good to me. I've known Jacob for a couple of years now. I met Matt last year. Really good dudes, always willing to invite me up to the booth, let me hang out, stuff like that. So shout out to them. They're good dudes. So I always appreciate when they give me the time of day because I visit them when they're working. So they got stuff to do, but they always make the time, let me hang out. So appreciate them. A couple guys on Binghamton though to talk about. Unfortunately, Jet Williams, he was in the lineup. He was a scratch. I don't think he's played after getting nailed a couple times in a doubleheader last week. I think it was either Friday or Saturday. Can't remember off the top of my head, but it was late in the week. So I'm not sure what's going on with Jet officially. But they get to see Alex Ramirez for the first time, and he's a big dude. We saw some glimpses of him mostly in the prospect game during spring training. He's a big dude. And it's weird because you say he might have a little bit more. Like I said, I think he has maybe a little bit more filling out to do, which is kind of crazy. Not from like a growing standpoint or whatever, but it looks like if he adds just a couple pounds of muscle on him, it's a big guy to be patrolling center field right now. And obviously he's got the speed. I mean, the couple of times they picked off on him, he's so big, he's just he just falls flat in his face, diving back into first base. Like that's how big he is, and obviously moves around in the outfield very well. Got a good arm. We saw him play right field during spring training as well. He's played right field for Binghamton, so a couple times this year as well. No, I don't like saying, "Oh, this guy has five, five tool potential, whatever." Um, because what do I know? I'm just a fan, but uh, seeing him up close in person, uh, I mean, this guy could be something. He could be something. We already got Drew Gilbert as an outfield prospect. If Alex Ramirez continues to develop the way he has, obviously he's putting up some really good numbers to start the year in Binghamton after a bit of a rough year uh, with Brooklyn last year. So if he continues to develop this way, the Mets really, really might have something special if Gilbert and Ramirez develop into really solid MLB outfielders.
And Jet Williams, then you have a
I'll,
pretty darn good outfield
Yeah.
to have those two
Unfortunately, I
guys.
can't talk about Jed as much. I mean, because unfortunately, he's perhaps a little banged up, and I don't want to speculate. But Alex Ramirez was definitely the biggest takeaway for me from if you want to talk about the high end prospects that Binghamton has to offer right now.
And he's been walking. That's probably
Yep.
the one thing that uh, Alex Ramirez really had to work on is getting his walk rate up. And he is doing that. He's hitting the ball well. It's a tremendous athlete. From what we have seen in spring training, we already saw that it's a tremendous athlete. Um, and yeah, he has the tools and the ability to be a very solid major league player. It all depends on how he develops. Um, but it's also a guy, uh, a type of player the Mets right now like. It's not necessarily a big power guy. It's not necessarily, um, you know, it's not necessarily a big walk guy, but it's a guy who makes contact. It's a guy who has tremendous speed, and it's a guy who can do damage on defense and on the bases. So I definitely believe that at some point Alex Ramirez, in some capacity, will be a major league baseball player.
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear what your buddy Ernest has to say about my analysis if I'm spot on or kind of there, whatever. Because obviously, he knows him from his days with, St.
St.
Lucie,
Louis.
and
Yeah.
obviously, I started watching some of his stuff on Twitter. He's very into it with even guys at the upper levels, not just St. Lucie. So I'd be curious to hear what he would have to say about Alex Ramirez. Another guy, obviously not a high end guy, but someone we have talked about in this podcast, Rylan Thomas. He picked up an RBI in that game that extended his hitting streak. I believe they said to six on the broadcast, 6 games. I think he got another hit last night, so it's up to seven now. It seems like I picked the wrong game to go to because the next night, Binghamton is hitting the ball out of the ballpark. Jeremiah Jackson had a home run. Kevin Parada hit a home run, so I got to see Parada. Parada's a tough dude, I'll tell you that much. The game I went to, he got nailed with a foul ball at the plate like 3 different times. Whatever, you could tell he was feeling it, but he's stuck in there behind the plate and you gotta give him credit because obviously there's been a knock on Parada. It's maybe he's not a great defensive catcher, but obviously you're not going to improve your defense if you're not going to get reps behind the plate. So, no, he stood in there, took those foul balls uh, off some pretty sensitive areas, shall we say? Um, but Kevin Parada, maybe didn't have a great night if you look at the box score, but he showed me something with his toughness, that's for sure. And you want your catchers to be tough like that.
Yeah, 100%. We will see what his defense will eventually be if he um, comes up a little bit more. But um, another guy who had a down year last year, but in my opinion, shouldn't be forgotten in this system. Same with Alex Ramirez.
Yep.
So good to see that he has done all right. I don't think, and not necessarily know his numbers on the top of my head. I think it's less than Alex Ramirez, but it's
Yeah.
decent. So I hope he is getting a little bit on the older side, if I'm correct for prospect. So time does a little bit tick for Kevin Parada to have a good year this year, maybe more than Alex Ramirez, who's 20 years old.
Yeah. Well, and obviously, if Parada can develop, I was, maybe we kind of talked a little bit about this when they drafted Parada because at that time Alvarez was still coming up through the system. So you're wondering how they're gonna, make it work. There's always the possibility that, maybe Parada's bat is the thing that gets into the major leagues, and you gotta DH. Who knows? There's obviously a need for DHs now in the National League, and so maybe that's the way he gets there. But it's funny too because we talk about that draft class, Pry was the first one taken. Then the Mets had a pick later in the first round and took Jet Williams. So, if you get those guys to develop into some solid major leaguers, it's a pretty damn good draft class.
I do have to add from all the top prospects. We have been pitching very well in the minor leagues, but we haven't necessarily been hitting very well in the minor leagues. If you look at Jet Williams, Acuna, uh, Gilbert, who's obviously now hurt,
Yeah.
didn't have a great start. Um, so I do believe that right now, if you look at all the performances pitching, I could see that the the level of how we develop pitching is maybe a little bit ahead. We also saw it with Brett Beatty and Mark Vientos, by the way, guys who haven't necessarily wow us in offense. Even Francisco Alvarez, who has his stretches, but his overall numbers are still eh, not what we see from other uh, organizations who have top prospects up and sometimes do well. So that's something that is a little bit, planted in my head to see how the top prospect hitters are gonna adjust and if that's gonna improve.
Yeah, definitely something to watch. So, let's talk about pitching, particularly the pitching probables for this weekend series as the Mets. Oh, you got something to say before that?
Yeah, I've one arm in St. Lucie. We didn't even mention St. Lucie,
Oh, go
Andrew,
ahead.
and that was Jack Wenninger. Of I don't know how you pronounce it, but he
Well,
had
Jack's gonna be
six.
pissed at you.
Huh?
He's gonna be pissed at you.
Yeah, probably. Well, I mention him, so that's good. There's not a lot of people who mention this guy probably, but not as he should be mentioned because he has been tremendous so far. 2.50 ERA, 28 strikeouts over 18 innings. Just pitched six scoreless innings with allowing just one hit, no walks, and 10 strikeouts in St. Lucie. Another arm in St. Lucie we should keep an eye on. I saw a note somewhere that he improved his fastball velocity, which is now sitting at 92 to 94 and touching 95, with a good changeup with that nice downward action. And he got 20 whiffs in his six scoreless innings. So um, he showed some improvement since scouts saw him last year. And by the way, it didn't came from Ernest. This was all my own research this time. So kudos to me and myself. Um, so another arm in St. Lucie, you already have Jonathan, Kate Morris, Austin Trozer, and now we can add Jack and his last name to this list for another guy who definitely we should keep an eye on. Maybe even better than Kate Morris and Austin Trozer so far.
And we know how well Trozer has pitched this year, so that's kind of saying something. So definitely some arms that are up and coming in the Mets system. But let's talk about the Mets arms that are on the current roster that will be pitching this weekend, or at least they're listed as probables for this weekend series against the St. Louis Cardinals Friday night. Miles Michaelis goes up against Jose Butto. Butto coming off that strange outing, I guess we could say, against the Dodgers. He didn't get 5 innings. He did have a lot of walks, but he also had a decent amount of strikeouts. I think it was 6 walks, 5 strikeouts, something along those lines. So, but his 2 starts at City Field have been really, really good. So maybe he just likes pitching at City Field. So we'll see if Buto can uh, bring it in a little bit with the control against the Cardinals on Friday night. Saturday afternoon, that's the City Connect game. Sonny Gray, who's been really, really good for the Cardinals this year, he's 2-1 with a 1.04 ERA. That's obviously good for my fantasy baseball team. Going up against Adrian Hauser, who's definitely looking for a bounce back performance after that rough outing against the Los Angeles Dodgers. And then we finish things off on Sunday. That's going to be some veterans toeing the slab. It's going to be Lance Lynn for the St. Louis Cardinals going up against Jose Quintana. So those are your probable pitching matchups. Obviously, everything is subject to change, as we saw yesterday with Blake Snell. But the Mets coming home after a 3-3 West Coast trip to play the St. Louis Cardinals. Give us your thoughts on this series, sir. You did get one wrong, finally.
I did. I did. Yeah. Yeah. Quintana sucked, so he killed my chances for a back to back to back. But hey, even even I can be wrong at times. I don't necessarily feel that bad about that prediction. I do believe that this is a tough one. I mean, the Cardinals' offense is struggling a lot, so um, I could actually see maybe a sweep, although the matchup Hauser versus Sonny Gray isn't necessarily in our favor right now, to say the least. Although I do believe that Hauser can bounce back. Um, I still gonna pick 2-1 with that Saturday game going to the Cardinals.
We're thinking the same thing. Obviously, Michaelis not having a great year. I do expect Buto to ring it in a little bit here, limit those walks. Um, you know, the we're in lockstep on Saturday. It seems like no one's been able to touch Sonny Gray at all this year, and obviously Hauser with his couple of rough outings he's had this year. You don't really know what you're going to get. Maybe with him, hopefully it's a better go around for him. Sunday is kind of the weird one to pick in my opinion because Lynn. I think Lynn is hittable, but obviously he's had a couple good starts this year. It's evident by his record's 1-0, but he has a sub 3 ERA. It's 2.81, so he's limited some damage. But in Quintana, we've if he's not walking people, I think he can pitch a solid game. Hopefully, they get some good defense behind him as well. The defense is a little suspect this West Coast trip, as it has been at times this year. I'll say they take 2 of 3 from the Cardinals. Obviously, that'd be great. Um, but we'll see what happens if they can get a good start from Quintana on Sunday. I think that's really really going to help. Um, So we'll see if the veteran can bounce back. And obviously this weekend, as of right now, the reports are, the expectation is JD Martinez will make his Mets debut on Friday night. So that means someone's got to come off the roster, and it's really between DJ Store, who has an option, or you have to DFA Zach Short. Short hasn't played in a while, so it makes me think that he is most likely going to be the odd man out, and obviously DJ Store has earned that roster spot if that's the way they go, based on his recent play since really that Atlanta series.
Yeah, I would be shocked if it's not Zach Short. And yeah, saves us a 40-man roster spot, right, as well. So
yep,
I think JD is probably on the 40-man roster.
Yeah.
So I think it will be Zach Short, and you can even maybe put Christian Scott in there for Adrian House.
Oh, there you go.
It's not gonna.
No, definitely won't.
Not
Gonna happen this weekend. But it does open up a 40-man spot for him, though.
It does open up a 40-man roster spot for him, but it's probably going to a reliever at some point first.
That's most likely the case. Yes.
I just wanted to be funny here. I know I'm not, but I just wanted to try at least.
We can only do so much, Some people have it, some people don't.
No, and I have to get on your level all the time.
That's
so
right.
It's tough.
That's right. No one will be. You won't be as much of a comedic genius as I am.
So. No. You're hilarious. All the jokes. I mean, you can go through this episode without laughing 28 times at you.
Well, yeah, that's my specialty. I get people to laugh at me. I don't make
if it works, it works.
That's right. Some way, somehow. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Queens Connection Podcast, a production of Patent Sports Creative. We're on Spotify, YouTube, so make sure to subscribe wherever you listen. Drop some comments on in there. Follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter. You just search the Queens Connection. We're bound to pop up, so give us a follow there as well. So, Mr. Corne, thank you for joining us, and enjoy this weekend series against the St. Louis Cardinals. You can be watching them live, or you have to watch on tape delay?
Well, tomorrow
I figured I would ask you now.
That's a good one. Even if I'm awake tomorrow night, I can't because it's Apple TV.
Oh, that's right.
So I have to watch that later. Saturday, I think Saturday and Sunday are both early games, right?
Yeah, Saturday's 4, Sunday's 1:40.
Well, then
our time. They're it's a little later for you.
Yes, it's a West Coast game time for me on Saturday, and a East Coast game time evening on Sunday. So everybody can be saying, "Oh, poor guy, have to stay up until probably 1 a.m. to watch Saturday's game." But I'm gonna make it work.
As you'll always do. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. He's Corne. I'm Andrew. Enjoy the weekend series against the St. Louis Cardinals.